be in a boy band or something like that. We're not a boy band. We were able to, we have the honor, and we truly count it an honor to be able to serve Prairie hockey in working with leadership development, character development, and those sorts of things. I hadn't planned on saying this, but just hearing Derek and hearing AJ and Justin's heart, just a little bit about where we come from with HumbleStrong and our approach with and our connection with Prairie hockey. We are deeply, I'll speak for myself, deeply connected with Caronport High School and with Prairie hockey. I grew up in Northern California. I came up here about 20 years ago to go to the college and have been back and forth a few times, back to the U.S. and here. And over that time, I've developed, for whatever reason, just a real desire to work with hockey players, developing character. And this is not something that's natural from my growing up or anything like that, but being involved at Briarcrest and then being involved with Justin, hearing his vision for Prairie hockey, has really inspired me. And so I had the chance a couple years ago to serve as the chaplain for the Briarcrest Clipper team, which was great. We have a son in grade 10 in the high school, a son in grade 8 who will be in high school next year. And to me, it is amazing to know that there is a program at CHS that has such a high level of athletic performance, but such a focus on developing the character of these young men. And it makes me, it's just great for me to see some of the boys come out to basketball games and watch our son play and the other kids. So it's just a wonderful community and very, very proud to be a part of it. I'm going to ask Adley to come up with me. One thing we want to do before we tell you about, before we let you know about HumbleStrong, kind of the approach that we're taking, you've heard so much focus on student, right? And so much on our student athletes. And so we thought one of the best ways to start was to have one of our current student athletes to be able to share what some of the bit of what he's learned this year through our courses and our time together. So I've invited Adley Calvert, who is one of our captains, to share just a little bit about his semester so far.
Hi, I'm from Moose Jaw, and I'm currently a student athlete here at Prairie Hockey Academy. Today I'm here to tell you guys about my experience with HumbleStrong. And one thing that I've learned in HumbleStrong is the idea of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. Basically, you have one or the other. A fixed mindset believes that skills are born, and a growth mindset believes that skills are developed. Here at Prairie Hockey Academy, we believe in a growth mindset, and we learn from the experiences and understand that our talents and abilities have been developed through effort and persistence. Another thing that's helped me learn is the exercises that we've done on recognizing our first thoughts. Something that surprised me is that you have very little control over them, but you can recognize them. We've been working on changing those negative thoughts to the positive thoughts. What helps keep your energy levels up and it keeps you focused. In this class, it's helped me learn more about myself and how I respond to different situations, and it's also helped to get me to get to know my teammates better. Thank you.
Hello, this is Tony. I'm Stan, and we're with HumbleStrong.
We're going to sing a song for you. What is the size of a mountain, yet doesn't stand in the way of an army? I have a friend, Ellen Duffield. She's a leadership coach and an author, and she often shares this old Welsh myth about a king who was the size of a mountain. And this king in ancient times had a regular-sized sister who he married off to Ireland. And it was an approach that was supposed to unify the nations. But a bird flew back one day, and that bird told the king that his sister was being made to scrub the floors on her hands and knees. And it was a sign of disrespect to women and to the Welsh, and so he put his army together. And he started going across the sea to Ireland to get her back. And the Irish Sea an army and a sea full of boats coming towards them, and a king the size of a mountain walking through the water. And they freak out, as they do, and they did what ancient peoples do, and that's you burn all the bridges, you burn all of the roads. Anything that would connect any gaps in the land or anything between their journey to the castle and from the sea. So they burn all of those, and the king gets across the sea. And the king can easily, because he's the size of a mountain, jump over some of these places. But a good leader doesn't leave his team behind. And so the king would end up laying himself down. I think I have a photo of the event. It's a little not to scale. But the king would lie himself down every time they came to a gap, every time they came to a crossing where a bridge had been. And he'd lay himself down so the army could follow and crawl on his back and cross. And they rescued his sister, and they brought her back. And the myth ends with these Welsh words, Evo ben bit bont. And that means the one who would be leader must be the bridge.
So with HumbleStrong, we're very privileged to work along Prairie Hockey Academy in providing the leadership training that goes into the purpose behind Prairie Hockey Academy of Developing Life Champions. And so the idea of a life champion is at the core of that mountain leader. It's at the core of what we're trying to do in our own lives and in the lives of the people that we come encounter with and the student athletes. So within that, we're looking at the mental side, we're looking at the emotional side, we're looking at the spiritual side, we're looking at the physical side, and we're trying to help student athletes understand how can I grow in these areas. The thing about athletics, and I've had the opportunity to coach at the college and university level for about 25 years, and in athletics, as the level of competition rises, the gap difference in skill and training narrows significantly. So as you move up in levels of competition, that skill gap, that differentiation gap, it narrows. As you move up, it narrows even more. As you move up, it narrows. And so, as we prepare student athletes at Prairie Hockey Academy, not only to meet the challenges that they currently have, is how do we help them step into that gap that is potentially narrowing? How do we do that? And there's Ken Hitchcock, who coached the Dallas Stars, won a Stanley Cup, says, as you move up, so just as we're talking about the ladder, skill can only take you so far. As a pyramid narrows at the top, the ones that are left standing are the ones that have a certain level of mental toughness. And we're going beyond mental toughness. We do, as Abby was talking about, we are addressing the mental side of the student athlete. But we also believe that there's an emotional side that's connected very closely to the mental. And there's a spiritual side that's very connected to the mental and the emotional. And the physical is connected as well. We're not, those things aren't separate. They're all connected. And they're connected in such a way that when we work on those things, they help each other grow. And and by working on those things, we're going to help student athletes step into the narrowing gap, because that's what's going to differentiate, right? It's going to be the mental and emotional toughness when I get into that tough situation. It's going to be the spiritual, physical core that I have in my life that's going to help me meet the challenge in front of me.
It's going to help you become a champion.
Exactly.
And so we see leadership as this competency with well-being, trying to bring a unity together from this great competency that we want to develop on the ice, off the ice, but also a sense of well-being and character.
So as we look at HumbleStrong, what we've done is we've looked at, these two circles, and we've looked at strength on one side and humility on the other. And what are the humble, strong characteristics actually that fall in between?
And we start with a word like strength, which is an excellent word. And you end up with a sense of being a champion of achievement. And on the other side, we just contrast that with this kind of a monk person who has lots of character. And we know these things do overlap. But when we look at the areas where they don't, we find the edges of strength. And words like strength and humility, they're wonderful words, but there are places that they can take us where sometimes we don't want to go. There's a way of seeking achievement where we end up choosing success over significance. And so on this side where you have strength but you don't have humility, you end up with these sorts of words that start coming to mind, like bully or overbearing, when you need to win, where you need to be right, where you must be in charge. And there's an arrogance to it, a lone wolfness to it. Sort of like a guru. In this side, we kind of speak of this as being an unhealthy, all-costs achievement. And none of us have been guilty of doing that. And on the other side, we have this sense of choosing meaning over achievement, this place where humility doesn't cross strength. So we have this set of words like passive or merely compliant, words like weak. Sometimes we use that word humble like that. I mean, we use it positively too, but we'll use it to talk about somebody who's weak or somebody who's afraid of conflict, who avoids things, someone who has a fear of being in charge, someone who ends up being a lackey. And in this side, I would call this unhealthy, willful incompetence. So this unhealthy all-cost achievement versus this unhealthy, willful incompetence, but where on one side you might have weakness or arrogance, in the middle, when you put humbleness and strength together, you end up finding a pathway to be able to combine both, and really to end up finding a life that is strong and yet humble. So you'd have forward words like mindful, self-aware, gritty, unafraid of failure, winning together, teachable. Ultimately, we think one of the words that is the best grab at a humble, strong kind of person is a learner. And there's so much we have to learn. And we think that this paints a picture and provides a path for healthy achievement. And when we combine these things,
so when we take a look at humility plus strength, we believe it equals humble strong. And it's similar to hydrogen plus oxygen equals water that's needed for life. Humble plus strong equals humble strong. Needed for life-giving leadership. So what we're after is, taking these two things and bringing them together to bring the best out of both areas. Because we believe by developing a humble, strong leader, that is going to be the differentiation as we fill gaps, as we cross over divides.
So to give you a little taste of what this looks like, we actually had our current team do one of these diagrams and create their own version of what humble and strong looks like as a hockey player. I'll give you a version that you can kind of read. I just want to talk about a couple of things that they pointed out. This might be hard to read. Drill buster, who would get that one?
Right? So on the strength side, on the humility side, hesitates to shoot. Right? So that there are opposing things, but what does a humble, strong person do? They're not a drill buster. They're not somebody that just plays and drill, drives a coach crazy, right? They're not the ones who's constantly hesitating, but they're the ones who are taking responsibility, right? They're taking responsibility for their development and for the development of their teammate with them.
So let's simplify this for a second. We'll go back to this idea of achievement, character, I want to talk about ego. Ego is a big part of strength, having the ego. And this ends up changing the way you approach failure in your life. So on the strength side, failure ends up being ignored or blamed on others. When on the humility side, it also is kind of it's ego just coming out in a different form. And when we see failure ends up being avoided and something you run from. And from a HumbleStrong perspective, we can embrace not just who we are, and we can embrace failure as just an opportunity to grow. You can't grow unless you have that feedback loop of failure, can you guys? You can't. It's a part of growth. And it allows you to get to a place where you can have this kind of joyful mastery. And instead of ego, you can replace that with purpose.
And it's a purpose in something bigger than yourself, right? It's not restricted by where I currently am. It's something bigger than I currently am. And sometimes bigger than I actually currently can dream of. So, a couple people who've talked about this, John Schneider, who's the GM of the Seattle Seahawks, has talked specifically about ego as the enemy. Ego is the enemy. So, he's up there because I'm a Seahawk fan. And they have won a Super Bowl. And yes, they lost to the Patriots. But ego is when you're building a team and when you're working with players and teams, ego is the enemy. Ego is the thing that will take you down.
Ego is the constant barrier between you and becoming a champion.
Yeah.
I mean, that's on the ice, that's off the ice. Tom Henry says that he has this difference between I'm valuable and invaluable. There's a sense where ego can take us into places where we really aren't. It gets us worried, it gets us living out of the present moment, and that means we're not developing. And so if we go back to this phrase, leadership is competency with well-being, we see this unity of humility and strength in that mountain king. Because if you think about that king, if he was just a humble guy, would he be able to bridge the gap? Would he be able to lay across rivers and be a bridge for his army? No, he needs to be big. He needs that massive competency. He needs both that massive competency. But if he's as big as a mountain, he has all this power, and it's obviously representing his abilities, that can actually end up getting in the way. And having both the capacity, and yet having the character, having the values, having that sense of well-being, allows him to not only being somebody that has the capacity, but also has the heart and the values to lay down, so that team can cross his back.
So when we talk about values aren't things that you either have or you don't have. Values actually are skills that can be developed. Okay, so it's not a matter of I have it or I don't have it. It's actually values and character, mental and emotional strength are the spiritual core that we have. They're things that can be developed. They're skills that can be developed.
Yeah, oftentimes we can think of ourselves as, do I have integrity or don't I? So thinking, how do I develop something like integrity? How do you develop that amongst yourself? How do you develop that in others? And there's a few different approaches to this kind of thing. We want to invoke the HumbleStrong diagram again and talk about the idea of the mountain and this guru who might find a bit of gold. But in the end, he ends up being satisfied with the gold that he has. So he goes up on top of the mountain to sell it. And yet, this is kind of harsh. And on the other side, you have the lackey. Now he goes up the mountain and listens to the guru, hoping to receive gold from there. without having to get dirty. And rather than taking those paths, we urge this path of the miner. The miner digs into the mountain. He digs for gold. He invites others to dig. The reason why somebody like an expert ends up being different than a guru who proclaims to have it is that the expert who digs down deep sees that there's so much more gold, that they're aware that there's so much more. So they keep digging. They're not busy spouting off their stuff at the top of the mountain. They're busy getting dirty, getting hard, and knowing that you can't get gold. You can't actually develop yourself without getting dirty and digging down. And if you can dig down, if you can become a miner, you chip away and chip away, and you end up with a pile, and that pile grows, and that pile grows, and that pile grows, and eventually you have the resources of a mountain. And you get to a place where you can be. So what we just want to leave you with is that a leader is HumbleStrong. They have both well-being and competency. Also, character and values are skills that you can develop. And probably most importantly, you can only learn by digging.
So it's something that we've talked a lot to the current team about is, how do you develop the mindset that failure and obstacles are actually the only way to move forward. That's the only way that I learn and grow is actually by facing my failures and the obstacles in front of me. And that's what we're talking about, you only learn them by digging, by facing them, by getting after those things. And that's what makes us excited. Because when we face those things, we see growth. Right? When we see those things and we experience those things, we actually can fill gaps. We can bring a teammate along. We can, support somebody that needs support at the time in what they're facing.
And, we want to challenge you whether it's as a parent or as a player, to think about the places that you need to dig down deep. And if you look at this humility strength stuff, what are some of the places that you know that there's gold if you, instead of trying to go around the mountain, up the mountain, over it, you just go through it and go after that obstacle? Because we believe and we know that if you do, then in that conflict, in just the work of a champion, you can become one. And with this HumbleStrong attitude, you can become that mountain king, who not only has the strength to help, but you can't bridge gaps without that. You can't move on to what's next without that. Also has the character and values to do so when they're needed.
Thanks so much for the opportunity to be here, to serve with you guys, and we just look forward to it as we move forward.
Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. So, last year I kind of told a little bit of my story. I'm not going to tonight because it'll just take too long. I'd love to someday, but it fell in line with a lot of what Tony and Stan were saying. And I was a captain of a college team, and was a horrible teammate all at the same time, and had quite a large ego that took a large fall for me to recognize it. So really thankful for guys like Stan Peters in my life when I met him, and helped me recognize that leaders are simply just somebody who takes responsibility. And that's why I love working with young athletes today and helping them understand that they're all leaders, regardless whether you wear a captain's letter on your jersey or not. It's there and it's simple to develop, and it's that beginning step of taking responsibility. So again, we'll tell that story another night, but in respect to the time, we want to, student athletes, you guys go ahead and jump up, and He'll head off with Rod here in the back and head to a classroom. Before I toss a little bit of tunes back up here again, parents, we're going to be around, HumbleStrong crew's going to be around, a lot of us from our program here, so feel free to mingle amongst yourself. If you got questions for us, love to chat. There's coffee, tea, some squares and stuff like that in the back. And let's hang out and get to know each other. Thanks a lot.
Well, you guys
they're not going to be put out by
Oh, perfect. Great, thank you. So, direction of the sausage. Seems like those guys too involved. Pretty some good stuff.
Introduce myself. I'm Susan Mellon. Are you
Justin?
Okay. My husband was. You got like. Yes. Okay. I put those two together when you went up there at the end.
Yeah. She's obviously here.
Wandered off. Yeah. That's good.
Roads were okay coming in?
I know you guys
couldn't get off work. We're not taking them down the